to the Red Balloon. My name is Amy. I'm the event manager here, and we're very excited to welcome you all and to welcome Caragh OBrien back to celebrate the Vault of Dreamers. We all give her a round of applause. Before we start, I wanted to just announce a couple things. Tomorrow, if you can see our lovely sign behind us, we are celebrating our 30th anniversary. So a big heartfelt thank you to our reading community who have kept us here for 30 years. We really appreciate your support. And I know Caragh and her family have been big supporters of Red Balloon, which we're really grateful for. So let's hear another warm welcome to Caragh OBrien.
Well, thanks a lot, Amy. I love coming here. It's just great to be back at the Red Balloon because you guys have been so supportive of my books all the way along, and it's just fun to come back to my hometown, and I feel like I'm always coming back to my hometown bookstore, which is really cool. And anywhere I go, when I'm talking to other writers and booksellers and stuff, and I tell them I'm going to the Red Balloon, I'm like, oh yeah, the Red Balloon, that's so cool. So it's fun. Thanks. I thought what I would do is read to you a little bit from this new novel of mine, and then I have this activity we could do that's a little mysterious, and I will maybe need some help passing things out, and I might need some volunteers to just be willing to talk about their inner thoughts in a vulnerable, scary way. So I figured this is the crowd for that. All right? Yeah. Yeah. My new novel, The Vault of Dreamers, is about this 15-year-old student and she's really excited to be at a boarding school for the arts. But this school, the Ford School, is very unusual for two reasons. First of all, it's a reality TV show. So the students are being filmed by cameras all the time that they're awake. They're everywhere, except for in the bathrooms and the showers. The cameras run all day long, so the kids never can hide from them. If you ever saw the movie The Truman Show, it's got a little bit of that quality, except Truman didn't know he was on a show, and all of these characters know they're on a show. In fact, they're competing with each other to try to get higher ranks on the show. And the idea is that all of these cameras will help them be more creative. Like if you're in school and you have to prepare something for an audience, you're more likely to perfect it and polish it because you know people will be seeing it. And it's that idea, behind the reality TV show too. The other thing that's unusual about the Ford School for the Arts is that the students are required to sleep for 12 hours every night. And they know this coming in, it's required. They take a pill every night and they're out for 12 hours. And this too is supposed to help them because I don't know if you know any teenagers that don't get enough sleep, but I used to know some. Yes. And I wondered what would happen if they got enough sleep. Well, Rosie, our main character, decides to stay awake one night and see what's going on, because you'd want to know, right?
Yeah, it's like, why can't we sleep?
Yeah, why can't we stay awake? Why can't we stay awake? So she stays awake, and she actually does a little bit of sneaking around, which is completely against the rules. So she knows she's breaking the rules, but she's sort of, she's just a risk taker, and she figures she's going to get kicked off the show anyway, so she might as well do some exploring while she's there. And when she gets back into her dorm with the 50 other people that are all sleeping the way they're supposed to be sleeping, she sees that a doctor has come, and the doctor is looking very closely at one of the sleeping students. In fact, the student is having a seizure, which looks really wrong. And Rosie is very suspicious about this, and she's not really sure what to do. So she spends the rest of the book trying to figure out whether she should tell people what she's finding out and what's really going on at night. And it turns out that some of the students are a more valuable resource when they're asleep than when they're awake. So it's kind of a psychological thriller. It gets a little bit creepy. And I thought I would read something to you, not from the very beginning, because I've kind of told you at the beginning how it works, but from the second chapter when Rosie meets somebody who turns out to be important. So Rosie is aware that somebody could be watching her at night. She's aware of that. So then she starts wondering, well, if they're watching her do things, like they know, if for her creeping around at night has got to be wrong, right? Yeah. So she knows they're seeing her, so she keeps wondering when someone will respond to that. She thinks she'll be in trouble. And then when she's not immediately in trouble, she goes, well, what's that about? So she almost wonders if somebody is playing a game with her. Okay. Yes, spooky is right. Okay, so this is from chapter too. This is on page 17 for people if they wanted to be reading along, but I'll just do my best to read to you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
No, the back row is saying no. Speak up. How's that? Speak up. Speak up. Is that better? Can we be heard now? Yes. All right. All right. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you before this. No, just jump in with me. Figure out what's going on. All right. Okay. Behind the art building, leaning against a giant paint-spattered wooden spool, a guy was pressing an ice pack to his face. He was all Adam's apple with his head tipped back, and a white bib apron protected his shirt and jeans. I picked up another rock and ambled slowly across the gravel lot. "Hey," I said, "I saw in the kitchen before. Are you okay?" He lowered the ice. His bruise was a defined crescent, and the skin near his eye was ruddy and shiny from the cold. He might have been my age, 15, or a little older. His dark hair partially hid a row of 3 rings in his ear, and after one measuring glance, he hefted the ice pack and put it back on his bruise, closing his eyes. "I'm not interested," he said. An accent gave his words an extra clip. "Go find someone else." "For what?" I asked. When he didn't explain, I went on. "If you want to report the cook, I'll back you up. I saw what he did. He shouldn't have hit you like that." "That's cute," he said. "I mean it. Is he always like that?" "I don't need you to make a report," he said. "Fortunately, no one gives a hoot about what happens in the kitchen." I'm doing a little bit of editing for language, just so you know. "What did you do anyway?" I said. He shifted the ice pack and opened his good eye, spilled his precious eggs, pulled a knife on him. It was instinct, stupid. He gave me a little wave. "Okay, enough. You can go now. You've got your spike." "My spike?" "You know, for this compassionate little outreach of yours." He did a double jerk of his thumb, like a hitchhiker, to indicate the cameras. It took me a sec to follow his logic from the cameras to the viewers to a likely spike in my blip rank. "You think that's why I'm talking to you?" I asked. "For my blip rank?" "The 50 cuts are tonight," he said. "Students will be pulling stunts all day today to get their blip ranks higher. It happens every year. It's pathetically predictable, actually, especially among the doomed." I dropped my rock and brushed my hands. "Actually, doofus, I just wanted to be sure you were okay," I said. "My mistake." I turned and started toward the quad. His voice came after me. "Your name would be—" "Seriously?" I paused to stare back at him and braced a fist on my hip. "That's an apology?" He lowered his ice pack again. He didn't bother to smile, and I didn't either. Then he gave the slightest shrug. "I beg your pardon," he said. "It hasn't been my best morning. I'm Linus Pitts." I frowned, considering him, and then I took a couple steps nearer again. "Rosie Sinclair," I said. "We meet at last," he said. His voice was so deadpan, I couldn't quite tell if he was being ironic. That was when I noticed something really was wrong with his eye. I came nearer to inspect him. The pupil was a murky color instead of clear black. "Can you see all right?" I asked. "As it happens, I can't. I think there's blood in my eye." "Let me see." I looked closer while Linus aimed his eyeballs at me. It looked like red liquid had spilled inside his left pupil. I didn't know that was possible. "Shouldn't you get that checked?" "Probably," he said. "Like now?" I said. He closed one eye slowly and then the other. "This happened to me once before. It'll clear in a few days." I laughed. "So you're half blind and it's no big deal." "I'm not keen on doctors," he said. "Neither am I, but I like to be able to see," I said. "Like I said, it'll clear." With a beeping noise, the ice cream truck backed up from the dining hall next door and drove away. "How long have you worked here?" I asked. "Me? 3 years." "That's a lot of dishes," I said. "What makes you think I only wash dishes? I do a lot of prep, too." He resettled the ice pack against his bad eye and shifted so he could see me with the other. "Where's your accent from?" I asked. "I'm Welsh, by way of St. Louis," he said. "Why aren't you in school yourself?" "Because I quit," he said. To work kitchen prep?" I asked. His eyebrow lifted. "You're a regular charmer, you know that?" "Sorry," I said. "There's nothing wrong with kitchen prep. I'm just wondering." "How do you feel about getting cut tonight?" he asked. He pushed off from the giant spool and ran a hand down his apron, catching his thumb where the string wrapped around to the front. I said I was sorry. "You don't have to be vindictive," I said. He let out a laugh. "Not bad, Sinclair. You almost make me want to watch the show." "You don't?" I asked. "Seriously? But you work here." "Exactly. It's too much of a good thing. Franny likes to run it in the kitchen, And I always work facing the other direction if I can help it. I couldn't believe it. He worked on the staff of one of the most popular reality shows of all time, and he didn't watch it. Actually, that was pretty interesting. Cool, I said. Tell me, he said, something, he said. He lowered the ice pack and turned it in his fingers. All that compulsory sleep every night, what's that feel like? It's a little weird, I said. I glanced around to see a mic button on the top of the giant spool. Every inch of this place was wired for sound. I leaned back against the spool in the place where he had been and tugged idly at my necklace. Do you dream a lot? Linus asked. Can you actually feel yourself getting more creative? Not really. That's the theory, though, right? He asked. It was. One of the principles of the school was that our creativity was increased by our sleep because it cemented the learning from the day. It puzzled me, though, why we needed a full 12 hours. I wondered if Linus knew anything about what happened at the school at night. I didn't know it was such a tough question, he said. He had a way of smiling with his eyes narrowed in concentration, like he was serious even more than he was happy. I found it oddly inviting. It's weird, I said. I miss the night. I miss who I am in the night. That's not so weird, he said. Go on. I don't dream at all anymore either. I glanced out at the sheep again. I miss that a lot. I also miss feeling like I'm asleep. I know I'm asleep. I know the time goes by because when I wake up, it's daylight again, but I don't feel like I'm sleeping here, you know? That sort of makes sense, Linus said. It was hard to explain what I didn't fully understand myself. I put the toes of my boots together and examined them. I think it's connected to the cameras. I feel like I'm always on, I said. Like they've pushed a button and I'm always on. Night is completely skipped. When I wake up, I'm continuing directly from the evening before when I climbed in my sleep cell, like I haven't had a break, like I've been cheated. That was it. I felt cheated. I wasn't simply asleep. Someone was stealing my sleep and my privacy from me until I existed only for the show. It's like being robbed, I said. That can't be good, he said. I did the double thumb jerk to indicate the cameras again. I'm not sure I'm supposed to talk about this. He smiled. You can talk about anything. People say negative things about Forge all the time. You're only being honest. I felt a tingle of apprehension. It feels like a mistake. It adds authenticity. Viewers love that, he said. Besides, if you dislike it so much, you should be glad to be going home. Don't say that, I said, alarmed. Why not? I want to stay here so badly it hurts, I said. It'll kill me if I have to go, but every time I look at my blip rank, it's worse. So you're a pessimist, Linus said. How refreshing. I laughed and half squirmed at the same time. Are you doing this on purpose, tormenting me? Not at all, he said. Why do you want to stay? You want to be a big star, is that it? I couldn't possibly explain this hungry thing inside me. I needed to make films, real films about real people. It was the one way I knew, the one complete way to get to the truth and show what really mattered. If I had to go back to Dolai now, without an education, realistically, I'd end up working at McClellan's Pot Bar and Sundries, or at the prison school like Ma. I'd be dead my whole life. Have you ever heard of Dolai, Arizona? I asked. No, should I have? We're the poorest zip code in the country. Half the people don't have jobs. My school is a farce, and I'm on the pre-prison track there. It's teaching me nothing, let alone anything about film, I said. And don't ask me why we don't leave Dolai. It's still my home. I didn't ask you, he said quietly. He leaned a hand on the wooden spool. You can't seriously be here for the education. Crazy, huh? I said. He drummed his fingers for a second. What's your blip rank? I lifted my gaze toward the horizon. Last I checked, it was 95. That's quite lousy, he said. Exactly. I took a deep breath and tried to smile. The worst is going to be facing my little sister. She believed in me so hard. He sloshed the ice pack in his hand and then chucked it with a clink into the garbage can. You're good. I'll give you that, he said. I wasn't sure what he meant. Linus took a step backward and waved up at the tower where the big cameras were. An old guy with a mustache looked around from the back of one. Hey, Otis, how's it going? Linus said, and waved again. Where are my smokes? The old guy called down. I'll bring them at lunch, Linus yelled back. Otis vanished again. What are you doing? I asked. Otis is a sharp old coot, Linus said. You want to get him on your side. You can't just flag down the camera guy, I said. Linus slid a hand in his back pocket. Why not? Get this, Sinclair, he said. I may not watch the Ford show anymore, but I get how it works. It's a show. You're a performer on a TV show. That's what matters, not your fancy education part of it. Your entire value is measured by how popular you are to the viewers. You mean for the banner ads? I said. You won't even be eligible for a banner ad unless you pass the 50 cuts, Linus said. You have to think about the audience every minute between now and 5 o'clock. You have to plan for them and calculate their reactions. You need a strategy. I straightened away from the spool. Just because you work here doesn't mean you know what it's like from my side. I've been thinking about the cameras, I said. I've followed all the rules, but it doesn't work for me. I can't explain it. I never feel like myself here. You don't understand, Linus said. Forget the cameras. Think about the people watching. That's the difference. The people out there care about you, or they would if they felt like they knew the real you. Linus ran a hand back through his hair. Look, I can help you. I do know what works here. And what's that? I said. Honesty, integrity. I laughed, thinking of all the Janus types on the campus. They didn't strike me as honest, but they had high blip ranks. What else? I said. You could take the talent show approach, he said. That works if you're phenomenal. What's your art? What did you do to get in? I made a documentary about my sister Dubs, I said. She's 7. I want to make films. Oh, films, he said, in a snobby drawl. You can't exactly make a film in a day. I could actually, but it wouldn't be any good, I said. Next idea? He opened a hand. Hang out with one of your friends who has a high blip rank, he said. You'll get a shadow effect. I didn't have any friends. I had acquaintances, but it took me longer than 10 days to make what I considered real friends. Next idea, I said. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing. What else? I asked. Betray your boyfriend or girlfriend, whoever. Go for personal drama. I don't have a boyfriend, I said. Then find one. His eyes stayed serious, as if he were testing me. Think tryst, he said. Cut out later and meet up with a humble dishwasher with a festering black eye. It'll add a good 10 points to your blip rank. He was neither humble nor festering, obviously. You are a very misguided person, I said. I'm just right. You know I am. Why would meeting you be worth a spike? I asked. Because I'm a student and you're on the staff? Is that supposed to make us special? Don't be dense, he said. I searched back and forth between his mismatched eyes, waiting for something in his words to make sense. He smiled slightly and spun a hand back and forth between us. We have this, he said. This what? I said. You know, he said softly. I did not know. The fine, expectant buzzing in my chest had nothing to do with him. And then it did. His eyes warmed. See? I took a step back. The buzzing had exploded into wild wings of surprise. You're smiling, he said. I'm not, I said. I'll be here at 4:45, he said, just in case. I'm telling you, personal drama's good. It gets viewers to care about you. I backed up some more. Get your eye checked. You do bossy very well, Sinclair, he said, covering his heart. Irresistible. He was impossible, but he was also right about one thing. As I turned and ran for the film building, I was grinning and primed with hope. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming. Do you have any quick questions about that before I segue into this next cool thing we can do? When I was in college and I was playing squash one day, this was before we had glasses, I got hit in the ball with a squash ball. I got hit in the eye with a squash ball, and I had a hyphema. And I went to the hospital, and for like 3 days I was blind. I could not see out of my right eye at all. So I used that experience and I gave it to this kid in the book. He got hit in the eye. He got hit, yes. And in the scene right before this, we find out that it happened in the kitchen with the cook. So yeah, you will know about the particulars of that before you actually read that scene. Yeah. Nancy.
If you had like...
Wow, I would actually be closer to Rosie if she would have me as a friend, you know. Yeah. But this is great, because I really adore Gaia. She was my first young adult heroine, and she's still really dear to me. She's really dear to me. But Rosie grew on me a lot. She's just I couldn't stay with Gaia forever. I had to go make new friends, you know. Sometimes you have to make new friends. So I did. And I like Rosie. Yeah.
So what's her name?
Sinclair. Her last name is Sinclair, but her first name is Rosie. Like I have a cousin.
Sinclair, so I'm wondering.
Yeah, he thinks he's being, yeah, like when someone calls you O'Brien, they're kind of being your friend. Yeah, yeah. These are great questions. John?
Yeah, my question for you is,
Well, I do have a very beloved cousin named Rosie who I have adored my whole life. And I have a neighbor friend who's, at this time, she's an 8th grader whose name is Rosie, but it's spelled differently. So it's just, and I have a godmother who's my aunt, Rosemary, who also has been a very important person in my life. So Rosemary's been an important name for me forever. Yeah.
Well, how about Linus?
Well, you know, Linus is just a really cool name that sounds sort of British to me. And of course, I think of Peanuts, the Peanuts character, where Linus is the philosophical guy with his blanket, which I always thought was really, really cool. So I went with Linus. I did, but I'm not sure it goes over with everybody who's like 16, because I have seen some comments on like online where somebody said the unfortunately named Linus, and I think that means they don't really like his name. So what do you? I don't know, Linus.
I love it.
You do? I do too. I really like it, and hopefully people will grow to care for him. But it's not like Jack or Jake. And in fact, in the second book, I'm putting in somebody named Jack or Jake just on purpose so that he can look like, you know, not a Linus. But if you had to choose between friends, and all you knew about them was either their shoe size, like with Cinderella, I was thinking about this. Why does the prince know, the only thing the prince knows about Cinderella is her shoe size? How's that possibly going to work out, right? So if all you knew was Linus or Jake, you know, who would you want to be your friend?
Well, I don't like the name Linus, so I'm
So you would go with Jake.
But what's the name?
Yeah, well, you'd have to find out then. Okay, Lucy. I actually had a really, what I thought of as a really cool idea, which is the kernel of the book, that I can't talk about specifically because it's a total spoiler for what happens later on in the book. But it's related to dreams, and the novel is called The Vault of Dreamers. So when you get to it, that was the kernel idea. And actually, I was still finishing up the Birthmark trilogy, and I was talking to my agent, and he was saying, you know, Macmillan wants to buy something else from you. You need another project. And I was like, well, I'm not really sure what to work on. And I actually talked over about 5 different ideas with my agent. And then I finally realized I had to not be afraid. There was this concept that was more than I knew how to write, but I needed to grow into it. I needed to figure out how to do it. The seed idea I played around with for a long time. And then I've always been really interested in education. So I was intrigued about doing a school where I could really have the characters and teachers do what I wanted to. Like, what if we really just turned our kids loose to let them be creative? That's what I think would be really important. And I've also been really interested in reality TV shows. I was watching American Idol, and it's like, everybody seems to want to be famous, and everyone seems to think they can be a star. And we have this sort of mythology in our country that if you just got in front of the camera at the right moment, at the right time, you could be the star. And then you'd be happy too, right? You'd get fame and money and happiness that would all come together. So then I was like, well, what if this school put all those things together? And so I had to do many, many, many drafts before I started seeing the novel from the other side that she couldn't see. So writing in first person was a real challenge for me too, but it had to be, this novel had to be in the first person because of the psychological side of it. So a lot of fun. Did I get around to an answer for that? Yeah. This is the beginning of a trilogy. I'm working on book 2. It's very exciting. Yes?
Do you have a title for book?
I do. Actually, my title was just approved by my editor this week, but I'm not sure if it's public yet. So.
We won't tell.
All your adult life, so do you have a vision for it differently?
I did. I planned differently. When I started this novel, I had a plan for all 3 books. But by the time I finished writing the first book, I had to throw out my ideas for both book 2 and book 3. They just didn't work. So, in fact, I think I'm falling back on my experience with Birthmarked, where I realized I had a world that was big enough that I was going to be able to do more with it, even if I couldn't see where all that was going in the first book. So with this, too, I'm just trying to make sure I have enough open ends so that I can keep expanding and pull it back together. But I am finding it very tricky in book 2 to be trying to write book 2 and I have to really see ahead better for book 3 with this one. So yeah, I had these ideas. Well, I hope you have more questions, but I also have this kind of funky thing that we should try doing. So let's do it. I need some volunteers to help start passing out these. These have this, each person needs to have a black circle, a mysterious black circle, and a silver pen. So I will start this pile there. You can just pass them. And you two, will you take this basket to the back so that this basket could start from the back and work its way forward? And I will take one too.
Do they have to have a button?
Yeah, here, just take this bag. We'll just keep passing it around. So, what I'd like you to do with this circle is to write about a dream you have. Now, this can be a dream that's like a wish for something that you hope comes true. There's that kind of a dream. And then there are dreams that are real goals, like what you want a dream to have happen. You can have a dream for somebody else, that you dream for someone else to help that comes true. Or it can be a dream that you had when you're sleeping. Because we usually think of dreams as the two things, like the dream you have when you're sleeping, and then the dream that's more like a wish or a goal.
Yeah.
So you can decide for yourself what you want to write down as a dream. And if you would rather draw instead of writing words, feel free to draw. So this is your chance to write about a dream. And when we're done, you'll have the choice to read it out loud, but you don't have to. You can just like hold on to it for yourself. Do we have anybody who's brave enough to tell us about their dream?
But I went outside
Again, thank you so much for coming. This is so great.